Okay, so just basically what are similar shapes? Now you can take notes in your book with this, please. Okay, so the similar shape is if you get one shape, then you either shrink it or you enlarge it. Okay, so let's just say this is 2, 3, and 4, and I enlarged this and I used a scale factor of 2. Then what would happen is this 2 here would be times 2, the 3 will go twice as big, and the 4 will go twice as big. And you'll have a new shape that will be twice as big. Okay? That's called your scale factor. So basically when you're going from the small to the big, you will times by your scale factor, and when you're going backwards, you will divide by your scale factor. Okay, but what if you had a big shape and then you shrank it? So let's just say we have a rectangle and we're going to make it half of the size. So let's just say this was 7 and 15. And we're going to use a scale factor of a half. So really what we're doing here is we're going from big to small. So if it's going to be a scale factor of 0.5, it's going to be half of the size, like half of 7, which is 3.5. That's the same as dividing by 2. So if you divide it by 2, you get 3.5. If you get 15 and you divide by 2, you get 7.5. So therefore it shrinks and it gets smaller. Its scale factor is actually equal to the big shape over the small shape. So if you did that, you'll find you'll actually get 0.5 or a half. That's the scale factor. The scale factor in this one, because it's like, what are we doing to the first shape to get the other one? The scale factor is equal to 2. Whereas this one, the scale factor is a half. So when you are shrinking it, you're dividing by the 2. And if you want to go backwards, you would times by the 2. So I want you just to think about this. If you're going from small to big, you're looking at the factor that you times by, or the number that you times by. And if you're going from big to small, you're looking at the number that you divide by. So this is useful if you want to find like an unknown side. So say we have this rectangle and we want to find what x is, and given that that was 12 meters, and we know that this is 4 meters and this is 16 meters. Okay, so looking at that there, if these two shapes are similar, then the 4 will match with the 16. And you're looking at what do you do to get from the small shape to the big shape. So if you did 16 divided by 4, you get 4. So that means the scale factor would be 4. So to get from 12 to x, you do the same, you times 4, so the x would be 48 meters. Okay, so if we went from a smaller shape, let's say we went from a big shape and we're going to make the shape smaller. Alright, so let's say this was 9 meters and this becomes 1.5 meters along there, and this was 6 meters, and we want to find out what that one there is. Okay, so if you look at this, if these two shapes are similar, alright, so we'd have to state that they are similar. If they are similar, then what we're doing is we're shrinking it. So by what factor have we shrunk it? Okay. You can do this in a couple of ways. This isn't the scale factor, but if you did 9 divided by the 1.5, you'll get 6. So that means you've divided the 9 by 6 to get the 1.5. That's the factor that you divide by, because when you're going from big to small, you need to divide. That's going that way. But if you want to go back that way, then you would times. So if I want to go from 6 to x, I'm going from big to small. So that means I'd have to divide 6 by 6 and I'd end up with x equals 1 metre. Now, if you're after the actual scale factor, this is shape 2 and shape 1, the actual scale factor will be 1.5 divided by 9. You always do shape 2 divided by shape 1. And if you put that in as a fraction using your SD button, you'll find you'll get 1s out of 6. Because this second shape here is actually 1/6 of the size of the first shape. So just in summary, to actually get the scale factor, and write this down, to actually get the scale factor, you do shape 2 divided by shape 1, and by that I mean a side in shape 2 divided by a side in shape 1. But if you actually want to find a side that is unknown, what you need to do is you need to see, are you going from a big shape to a small shape, or are you going from a small shape to a big shape? Okay, so when you're going from a big shape to a small shape, basically what you need to do is you need to find the number that you're going to that's going to be divided by, because if you're going to get smaller, you've got to divide. What's the number that you're going to divide by to make it smaller? And what's the number, if you're going backwards, that you would times by? If you went from small to big, that would be times a number. And if you went big back to small, that would be by a number. Okay, so to get that actual number, you just need to get a side in the big one and divide it by a side in the small one, and that way you will get what the number is that you multiply to enlarge or shrink it. Okay, so if we look at, say, I went to a square, look at, say, this one here again, so you got 9 and you got 3, and then it gets shrunk to 4.5 and x. Okay, so if you look at this, the scale factor is actually 4.5 on 9, which is 0.5 or a half, because it's half its size. But if you went from 9 to 4.5, if you did 9 divided by 4.5, you got 2. So big to small, you are actually dividing by 2. So 3 to x, if you divide by 2, you get 1.5.